Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome everyone to episode 35 of Instigate Success, Building an ABA Franchise. I am your host, Jake Schoen. I'll be here with you tonight. And yes, we're still doing the stream, even though our season did end this past week. So thank you for everybody joining us here today. But yeah, so if you caught us this past weekend, we were in the playoffs for the very first time. And I've still got the hair. It's temporary. It'll probably be gone next week. But I had changed my look a little bit for the playoffs. The grills are out, so my teeth are back to normal. But the hair, at least for the moment, is still what it was for the playoffs. But we'll jump into that. So we had our first playoff matchup, and that was a play-in game against the Indiana Legends. We were the 4 seed in the Central Red Division, and there's 7 teams within that division, and the bottom 4 teams, 4, 5, 6, and 7, were part of the play-in tournament this past weekend. Our first matchup was against the Legends. And welcome everybody. I see we got Jason in here. He's been in here for a bunch of our shows. And Waylo, thank you for making it for tonight's show. Nice to see you guys. But yeah, we had our first matchup against the Legends. Very first time we saw any kind of playoff action for the Hoosier State Instigators. And we got off to a hot start in the matchup. Actually, the first quarter was a little bit back and forth, but we were able to pull ahead against the Legends and hold on to that lead. But we played at a neutral site, even though we were the higher seed. So technically, it was a home game for us. We played at the Crossroads Community Church instead of the Clinton CRC, which is our typical home venue. But it didn't matter in the end. We wound up walking away with the victory. And every time we play against the Legends, I always bring this up just because there's a little bit of extra trash talk between the two teams when we have the matchup. But the Legends do have one of our former players. I think it might honestly be the only former player that we have that's played against us multiple times throughout this inaugural season, Yogi Anderson. And it's always nice to see some of our former guys as well match up against us. But we also had all of our guys sub in towards the end of that game. It's always nice to see that, especially if you've been watching college basketball now. There's the tournament play and a lot going on the line for many teams to make it into the actual March Madness tournament. But I always love seeing when the rosters get cleared out and we have everybody out on the court. Stevie Richmond came in towards the end of the game and he drilled a 3-pointer. So that was awesome to see. I know between him and Yogi, there's a little bit of trash talk there as well. But yeah, it's always nice to see that matchup. But 142 to 126, pretty high scoring game. And the Instigators, showed everybody exactly what we're capable of doing in the playoffs. Defensively, probably could have been a little bit better, but we still wound up walking away with, double-digit victory in the playoffs. And I'll be honest, I was at that game, so I live in Florida, but I actually made the trip out to Indiana this past weekend for the matchup. I really wanted to make sure I was there in person. So I guess I'll jump into that too. So it was a little bit of a crazy weekend for me. I flew up to Indianapolis and drove out to that game, which actually the start time got moved up about 30 minutes. So for me, I mean, I was able to make it in time still, but it made it a little bit tighter. But we actually ran into a couple of issues throughout the game. So the shot clock, we weren't able to get set up properly before the game. So we actually had to have one of our other co-owners, Rob or Ronan. He normally runs the camera and he actually had to run the shot clock. So he had to run that for the whole game. And obviously, Corey is the coach now, so he couldn't help out with the stream. So I was literally like running the camera this weekend, announcing and controlling the behind the scenes here too. So that was really eventful for me. I kind of just got off the plane and jumped straight into that. But it's always fun. I love doing that, and honestly, I'll miss doing that. Um, Come this weekend and for the next however many weekends until the next Instigators game. Um, but it was really fun. I always love being there for the games in person, and this game was definitely super loud, and it was loud for both teams. It's the first game that I've been to where I will be honest, it was loud like throughout the whole entire game. And when we'd go to the free throw line, there was actually like kids up on the upper floor. The venue has like the base court with the basketball court and some stands and a little bit of stuff around there. And then they have a higher level with like a track, and you can kind of go up there and get a different vantage point to watch the game, which is pretty cool. Um, but it was there was a couple of kids up there. They must have had like some clappers or something, and every time we went to the free throw line, they got pretty loud. But every time the instigators made a run, our side of the crowd also got super loud. So it was a lot of back and forth between the two teams, and both sides had their fans definitely show up for that game, and it was great. It was definitely like what you would expect to see from a playoff matchup. um, but that was our third matchup on the season, if you include the regular season and postseason, against the Indiana Legends. We were able to walk away with a victory against the Legends in all three of those matchups. But I will say they got pretty close in that second matchup. Both actually all three times we've been able to get a double digit lead against the Legends, and we've been able to hold on to that for the finish of those games. But the Legends, you can tell they're definitely improving. Compared to that first matchup we had against them, the team kind of got some more unity, and they added Yogi throughout the season. So I think they're definitely looking to improve. And next year, you know, they return. I think they're going to be a little bit more difficult of a matchup. It's not going to be a matchup you can just chalk up to a W. When you see that on the schedule, they're definitely a team, much like us, that's definitely looking to improve next year. And when you talk with the team and the players, there's guys looking forward to what they can do in the next season coming up. So it's a positive for them as well, to get some playoff experience in this season. So that was Saturday. Again, the start time got moved up, so it was 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. We wrapped up, I don't know, maybe around like 3 o'clock, and then at 7 or 8 there was the game, the other game going on in the Central Red Division, which we would play the winner in. That was against the Louisville Pros and the Clarksville Phoenix. That game came right down to the wire, and the Phoenix were able to hold on to their lead going into the fourth quarter. And I think it was within a one-score game, if I remember correctly. But that game wrapped up super late on Saturday night, I believe, right around after 9 p.m. Eastern time, so local time for me. And they had to get right on the road because the winner of that game, which wound up being the Clarksville Phoenix, had to travel to the Clinton CRC to play your Hoosier State Instigators Sunday at 5 p.m. So they got right on the road. They were able to make it to that game Sunday, this past Sunday. And we'll jump to that. So we matched up against the Clarksville Phoenix. That game did not wind up falling in our favor. Um, and I mean, it's a learning experience. I guess that's the best way to chalk it up. So, um, obviously, we wish things would have went a little bit different, but I think what kind of happened is we lost the lead in the first quarter, and it kind of just the momentum changed once that happened, the end of the first quarter, we were down by, I believe, 14, and it kind of just it was kind of that like mental aspect of being down double digit points early in the game that was just a little bit too much of a hurdle to overcome. But when you get into the playoffs, it's a single elimination, so you can't have one bad game. The one bad game is what's going to knock you out of the playoffs. Um, but learning experience for all of us. This is our first season, obviously. I know people watching this have been following us throughout the whole process. So to even win one playoff game, that I think is an accomplishment in itself. Um, Coming from where we were, a year ago, I I don't think any of us saw the the group of us here being able to say our team won a playoff game. So we do have one playoff win, um, but guess technically we're 500 in the playoffs, 1-1, so not the worst record to have, and that also marks the coaching record as well for our head coach Corey Curran. He has a winning regular season record, but he'll be 500 when it comes to the playoff record. Regardless, he is the winningest coach in Instigators history, and he'll be holding on to that title for at least a while until the next season comes, if there happens to be another coach. But it was a great learning experience. I think everybody here had an amazing time, but there's still plenty to do with the Instigators. The season is technically officially over, but we'll keep you guys updated as far as our division with the Central Red Division, what happens. There are matchups throughout this weekend, which are the next like round of playoff games. So the winner of this game, which wound up being the Phoenix, had we won, either of those teams would go and match up against the Ohio Kings. The Kings, I guess we were initially told we're going to get the 2 seed, but it seems like they wound up with the 1 seed when things all got squared away. And they play against the winner of these play-in games. So that's going to be the Clarksville Phoenix. And the other matchup going on Saturday, so tomorrow, will be the Lions and the Nashville Aces. I think I've got that bracket. Yeah, I got that bracket right here. So you can see the play-in games that started it all this past weekend, the 9th and the 10th. And the winner, the Clarksville Phoenix, of those play-in games progresses to be in the semifinals. And these are all graphics taken from the Lions. They've been pretty much on top of the playoffs because they're hosting the games this upcoming weekend. So they're making sure to get stay on top of it. And I think they put post out as well for some ways to get free tickets if you are in the area. You want to catch some more ABA basketball. You can still go out and enjoy some more ABA basketball if you're in the area. But yeah, so Saturday, so tomorrow, the first matchup is actually the Aces and the Lions, and the second matchup is going to be the Phoenix and the Kings. But the Kings wound up, I guess, having the number 1 seed. They went undefeated throughout the regular season, and they were a very difficult team to match up against. And it'll be interesting to see in the playoffs. I'm not sure if they're going to have their full roster once it comes to playoff time, but I know in the regular season we matched up against the Kings. Cam Mitchell, he is just amazing. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. He was putting up like 50 plus points against us in the 2 matchups that he had, and I think he averaged about 50 points on the season, which is just kind of crazy to think about. That's almost half the points for some of the teams that we play. Most of the scores do go in the hundreds, but if you got one guy that's putting up 50 or so points, that's definitely going to help push that up higher in the hundreds. And if he plays, he's going to be the guy that the Phoenix are going to have to stop. And that's I think that's really going to be the make or break for the Kings is if Cam Mitchell is still going to be balling out like he was in the regular season. And, if he's not, if they have somebody that's able to step up for them. The Lions, though, on the other hand, we have seen in the past, the Lions are the defending co-champions for the ABA. Being in the division with them is an honor. Saying that we're able to go up against the champions. We definitely didn't pick the easiest division to play in. I'll be honest on that. If you look at our division compared to some of the other divisions throughout the ABA, we got some of the highest ranked teams. If you look at the power rankings, I believe the Lions finished number one in the power rankings. They might have been number two. But I know throughout the season they were top five, as well as the Ohio Kings were towards the top of the power rankings. I'm not really sure how the power rankings are decided, though. I'll be completely honest on that because the Kings did beat the Lions in their matchup, and the Kings did not have a loss on the season. So I know they played a little bit less games, and that was part of the confusion when it came to the number one seed. Um, but I don't know. I think if you're undefeated on the regular season and you beat the team that had the number one power ranking, maybe you should be the number one team, but I'm not really sure. What really is going to matter though is the playoffs. If those two teams match up against them against each other in the playoffs, then I guess we'll see who the true number one is. Because what matters really is the playoffs here. So it'll be a nice matchup between those two teams. And again, this is going to be hosted by the Indiana Lions. So it's over in Danville, Indiana for Saturday. And then the game on Sunday is in the Bostic Gym. And whoever wins these games, once it comes down to the Sunday matchup, they'll be representing our division, the Central Red Division, in the ABA playoffs once they go into the larger scale. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, after this, it jumps to Alabama. So a lot of the line for these teams. Obviously, I would have loved to see how the Instigators matched up going into the next game against the Kings. Our two matchups against the Kings on the regular season, I think those were our biggest losses, if I'm not mistaken. So it would have been a difficult road, but you never know because it all comes down to one game in the playoffs. Again, these are single elimination. So any of these teams, it's win or go home for every single one of them, whether you're the number one seed or you're the low seed. But we'll keep you guys updated on that as far as like next week and so on. But I do believe after this weekend, then the teams will be traveling to Alabama and they'll have larger scale playoffs between the different regions, and then ultimately one team will be the overall champion for the ABA. It's a little bit of a confusing bracket tournament type of thing from the outside. I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with the ABA until I jumped in this season with the Instigators. As much as I knew about the ABA before the season was the historical value of the ABA, as well as obviously semi-pro and Jackie Moon with the Flint Tropic. So seeing that it's still here today, they've got over 150 teams. There's definitely a lot of teams to get things settled out, and at the end, there's only going to be one champion crowned. But we'll keep you guys updated on that. And we had a nice picture taken. I believe the IBL took this picture at the Crossroads Community Church. This was after our first playoff game. And just wanted to give all these guys a shout out and thank you to all of the players, as well as all of our fans, sponsors, everybody that supported us throughout this inaugural season. Again, there's not going to be another inaugural season. So all these guys deserve a shout out for being on this team and trusting not only us as the owners, but the fans in going along this whole process with us. We're definitely not your typical ABA team. We had the fan vote for the name, the logo, the jerseys. And we're definitely going to have some more fan input when we go into the off season here. But I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody throughout the season. Really, we wouldn't be able to make it without everybody that's been involved. Again, fans, players, sponsors, everybody that's been part of us, and especially you guys here on the Patreon. Again, we're gonna have some votes once we get into the off season here. Um, but when the off season kicks off, we'll start having some more discussions and jump into some more of the meteor stuff for our fan voters. So you'll be able to see like our financials from our first year. You'll also be able to discuss, our plans going into the season. We'll have discussions as far as like player evaluations, coaching evaluations, and you'll have an input on how the future of the instigators will progress going into season two. So definitely still a lot of things for everybody here that's a Patreon subscriber um, to look forward to. I believe we're also going to have a Q&A with our head coach and one of our co-founders, Frosty, as we go throughout the off season. And we also have government like board meetings. If you're at one of our fan voters, you can also have a representation as far as those meetings in the future too. So still lots of things to have an input going into the next season. But until that, I just want like until the next season, just wanted to give everybody a shout out and a thank you for being part of the first season. But there was some news recently today within the ABA as far as the regional teams. So we had to vote out, I think a week or a couple weeks ago, as far as the two players to nominate for our all-star team. Um, they limit it to two, so it's a little bit difficult, I think, to limit it to two. I think we had three people that I think easily could have been on the regional team. That third player was Swish, Lawan Whitney, and he didn't get nominated. But I do think had he been nominated, we would have had three people here on this list. Um, he finished the season with over 50% from the threes on the regular season, 51%, and that was over 100 attempts. So that's definitely very impressive. But maybe next year we'll be able to get him nominated for one of these regional all-star teams. But you see here, this is the second team for the Central region. This includes all the teams within the Central region. They broke it down here to the second team. I believe they had a first team, a second team, and an honorable mention team. I only have the graphics here for the second team and the first team. But you see, one of our guys there, number 4, Dylan Ware, he played an integral part in this inaugural season. Um, he played with your Hoosier State Instigators and put up some great numbers. He was our leader in field goal percentage. Again, that's if you exclude Stevie Richmond. He had a much lower number of shots, so his percentage wound up, I believe, being 100% on the season. But if you cut it off at like 5 or so shot attempts on the season, then it winds up being Dylan, where he had 75% from the field, and he definitely deserved to be on that team. The second half of the season, we really saw him pick things up as a distributor, and I think a lot of that had to do with the coaching change once we switched over to our coach Frosty. Um, he kind of really took over more of a guard kind of position. He's listed as a forward, and I think that's how we technically had him listed, was a forward slash guard. Um, but he's 6'8", so like his size is always going to lean more towards the forward. But he kind of became one of our guards throughout the season and um, stepped up in that role and distributed the ball. And now that I'm thinking about it, uh, without him in the playoffs, we did have one of our newest additions, Mike Pugh. I just got to give him a shout out. He had an amazing playoffs. He kind of really stepped up in that role to fill. He as well as some other of the guys stepped up in that role to fill the void without Dylan in the playoffs. But going in the season, I think Dylan had close to 7 assists per game, and he averaged double-digit points, around 20 or so points. One of our highest scoring players, and I think he was one of the top for assists, if not the top, if you broke it down per game. I don't believe he had the most total because he had a couple of games he missed due to illness. But congratulations to Dylan. That's a huge honor for him to be on the second team for the Central region. He's with their he's up there with some of the other guys that we played against throughout the season that we got to see in action. And we also had one of our guys on the first team. I'm sure everyone here can expect Mr. 7 foot Alex Brown, AB himself, to be on that first team. I think there was kind of no doubt in my mind. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think that we all kind of thought that was going to happen. I would have been surprised if he didn't make it on that first team. He led the whole entire ABA in blocks. So not just the instigators, did he make a record. He also made the record book for the whole ABA. When it comes to this season, he led the whole league in blocks, and he led by a decent margin. I don't remember what the final count was, but I know he was leading with a couple of games to go by like 16 blocks. Um, so that is very impressive. I don't think many people wind up having triple doubles with blocks being one of those categories, but that was something that we had from AB this season. Um, and huge shout out to him. He definitely earned that. I think he's definitely, when it comes down to it, he might be the guy that kind of embodied the instigators throughout the season. He had that great picture from our photo shoot that's up on the website, and his picture wound up being used throughout the season for a bunch of our promotional stuff. So if you ever took part in our votes on the fan controlled app, it's just called the Control app now for fan controlled sports and entertainment. Every week we had picks up there, including the playoffs. And he was, I believe, just about every time the instigator that was chosen to be on the graphic for that. And we, we coming from fan controlled, we have a good relationship. And Ruthless Cutie, she said that she just loved that picture of AB, and it was great for any kind of graphics. And I completely agree because when I made the graphics, whether it be player of the week or the promo videos for the games coming up, it was always a nice little image that I could throw in there, and you can kind of crop that and throw it in just about anywhere. But yeah, so again, we had picks in a fan controlled app throughout the season. I think that's something we would like to continue doing when it comes to next season as well. But there was a little bit of news over on their side this week. I'll throw that out there as well. I didn't catch the stream, so I don't know all of the details, but I'll have to catch their stream at some point and catch myself up. But I know they mentioned that they are going back to racing. So the last year, they had their first fan-controlled racing event. I bring that up because I wound up being involved with that. So I didn't come up with the idea. Honestly, if we're giving any fan credit for that, I would say Peanut definitely was the head of that. He really pushed for fan controlled NASCAR for the longest time over in the fan controlled side, and they wound up racing at Phoenix for the finale in the Xfinity Series event. But why I bring that up is I actually was lucky enough to have my face on their race car going to that event. And my favorite driver, JJ Yealy, he actually got to race that car, which was, and I don't know why, but the headphones shut off again. And he raced that, and that was a fun event. I wound up flying out to that, and they stuck me into the pits. I probably got a little bit more access into the stuff than I should have gotten, but that was a really fun event. They'll be going back to racing in the Xfinity series. I did see it is at Talladega, and I see Jason put in there it's 420, so that will be in a little bit over a month. I guess they will be racing, but it'll be interesting to see that. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I'd love to see JJ get another chance, but I know there is going to be probably more people interested in it this time because it got a lot of attention that first time. But I did also, I live in Daytona now, like literally right across from the racetrack. Um, and over at Wawa, I did run into Natalie Decker too. I know she was involved with the first go around of fan controlled racing. And maybe she'll wind up being involved with it, but she seemed like she would like to continue that partnership. Again, I have no inside information when it comes to that, so I'm just spitballing and throwing names out there based off of what I know from last time and interactions that I've had. But again, I don't know. Um, so we'll see once the votes go up exactly who's going to be up for that vote as far as drivers. And hopefully we get some fan faces on the car again. That'd be cool. Um, but that is something to look forward to going into the off season. Um, and I throw that out there as well because when it comes to the AAC, we don't really have an announcement to make. But if you're part of our Discord, you probably have seen there's a couple of chats we got going on, and we recently added a racing channel. So you can jump up on that AAC Discord and jump into the racing chat. And we'll see. I'm not sure. We don't really have an announcement at this point, but that's definitely something we would like to do in the future. Um, so that would be something to keep an eye open for. Uh, NASCAR, though, I don't think is what we're going to be doing. NASCAR is really expensive to get into, and you need a lot of sponsors to kind of make that happen. Um, with how small scale we are, I don't think that's going to be the best route for us to go. Um, I'll be honest, if I had to pick my favorite type of racing, it would be drifting. I also don't think that's how we're gonna go. But if you're over in the Discord, sounds more like you know a longer type of race, possibly like a 24-hour type of race. So something to keep your eyes open for. Again, I don't know how fast we'll wind up moving or coming to a conclusion on anything. Again, these are just us talking at this point. Nothing has been official or nothing has been moved forward. uh, but it's kind of just us seeing and feeling around what the next route for us to go would be going into the off season, and see where the interest is not only within our ownership group but within our fan group here. But I know we've also thrown out other sports in the past. I know baseball for sure has been one that we've discussed. um, don't know off the top of my off the top of my head how many more were like legitimately thrown out there. I know like esports has been something as well. uh, Maybe soccer too, but I think baseball, as far as I know, was like one that was um, something we definitely would like to do at some point. uh, I know the Banana Ball League, again, I'm just throwing stuff out there, is something that would be cool. But there's not a league yet for that. But if that were to happen, that would be cool to be a part of. Um, but yeah, I see some of these suggestions here. The diecast racing, that's probably the cheapest version of racing that we could get into. Um, and I know there's people on YouTube, that's what they do. So there is a market for that. That would definitely be the cheapest route when it comes to racing. And I see the baseball option, that could be something there. An indoor baseball league and with a wall. So that would be pretty cool. Kind of like when you were in school, I don't know if this was something that every school did, but in my school we had like kind of like a wiffle ball and a wiffle ball bat, and then we played in like the indoor arena type of thing, like the basketball court, basically, I guess is what it was. And we just put like fake bases down, at like whether it be foam balls or something, and you play baseball that way. Be similar to that. That would actually be pretty fun. Or maybe we could combine it and do basketball. I know that was thrown around in the fan controlled world for a little bit, and I'm not really sure what happened with that. But maybe we could combine the two and do basketball. That would be pretty cool. Um, but yeah, coming into this off season, we're definitely looking for some fan input. So can make sure you get your voice heard over in our Discord. That's probably the best route to go. We're over in the Discord, and there's a bunch of different channels over there. And you can always just throw it straight in the general chat, and you know, we'll see how far we can take things. I'll be honest, I don't think any of us really expected our first year, to have a team. And I mean, we wound up having a professional basketball team in our first year of the company's existence, the Apex Athletic Collective. So I'm not going to say nothing could happen that fast, but I mean, we were able to do it this with the instigators. So uh, maybe we'll wind up being lucky and having something else happen quite as fast, um, or maybe we'll be back again with the instigators for our next sport, and then use that to maybe launch something else. But again, this is all just speculation. Nothing has been decided. We're still looking into a multitude of things and trying to narrow it down. Um, and I know this is probably very reminiscent of the people that have been involved with fan controlled. I'm not going to sit here and say soon because there is no official anything. I'm not going to try to sell anybody on the idea that we have everything figured out and it's all coming soon, because I'd rather just let everybody know we're still working on a bunch of different things. And once we get stuff settled, we'll definitely keep you guys up to date and you'll be the first to know. But again, we any kind of suggestions or anything that you have for the AAC, always feel free to let us know. We're an open community and we love to have the fan input. That's one of the major points that we like to use to separate ourselves from many of the other, um, I guess, pretty much every other ownership group. And that is ultimately what led to us having the instigators this season. And when it all comes and it's all said and done, I think we had a very impressive first season. I mean, obviously, we would have loved to go out on top, but I guess I'll have to wait to add the champion to my tattoo. But I'm sure the day will come for that. Um, but overall, very appreciative of all the support that we've had. Again, I want to thank everybody for their support, especially the fans, all of our supporters here on Patreon for being with us throughout the season. Um, Hopefully next year our setup's a little bit better when it comes to the streaming. I know that's something we're discussing as well, but it was kind of just like a couple of guys running this whole entire stream. So hopefully we can get that a little bit better. And hopefully we can get the scoreboard at every game. I know we kind of ditched that throughout the season and we switched to the comments for the scoreboard updates. But if we get a couple more people on working for the game calls. That'll help out a little bit, and we should be able to get at least that much extra for next season. Um, but I think, there's a lot of things. Again, we'll have the fan votes, fan input throughout the off season here, and work on creating an even better second season. And and until then, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of discussions, both behind with the ownership group and with our fans. But that's pretty much all I had for this time. I'm sure sometime throughout the season, throughout this off season, we'll end up catching up with some of our guys and getting some of their inputs in the first season, what they thought, what they think we could improve on, and I look forward to that. Um, but yeah, that's it for this episode of Instigate Success. Again, shout out to everybody involved with our inaugural season of the Hoosier State Instigators, and a special shout out to our guys that made the regional teams, A, B, with the first team ballot, and Dylan Ware on the second team. Um, Again, shout out to everybody that's been with us throughout this season. There's still plenty to come in the off season. Be sure to stick around with the AAC. We'll continue to have these streams on Fridays, so you can always catch us for Instigate Success, and catch up, get a little bit more insight on where things are going. And we're always welcome to jump into the Discord, and chat away there. And catch up with the guys there in the meantime. But until next Friday, thank you guys again for everything and being part of our inaugural season for the Hoosier State Instigators. Until then, be great and instigate.